The rope swung in the hot wind, twisting like a living thing above the gallows post. Dust blew down Main Street, turning the noonday sun into a red haze that burned against the faces of the crowd. The twins stood barefoot on the crate, hands bound, eyes wide as frightened deer. The people of Ash Hollow had come to see justice, or what they thought justice looked like. "String 'em up," a man shouted from the edge of the crowd. His voice cracked from whiskey and rage. The sheriff didn't answer. He leaned against a post, hat low, eyes dull. The twins shivered under the sun, their dark hair plastered to their faces with sweat. Wren's lip trembled, but she said nothing. Eli stood still beside her, jaw clenched, staring past the people as if he could see beyond them, toward the desert. The sound of hooves came slow from afar into the street. Not rushed, not hesitant. Steady, the kind of pace a man keeps when he's already made up his mind. Jonas Creed rode in from the glare, his old bay gelding plodding through the dust. He didn't look at the crowd, nor the sheriff, nor the noose swaying in the heat. His eyes went straight to the twins. "What's this?" His voice was quiet, but it carried. "Horse thieves," said the sheriff, straightening. "Caught red-handed." Jonas swung down, boots hitting the dirt with a thud. "Whose horses?" "Mine," the trader called. "They took him last night." Jonas looked him over, the trader's soft hands, the way he avoided the twins' gaze. He looked back at the sheriff. "You see him take anything?" Silence. A fly buzzed between them. "No," the sheriff admitted. "But folks seen their tracks." Jonas spat into the dust. "Tracks don't hang children." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Someone hissed, "They're Comanche blood, Creed. You of all people ought to know what that means." Jonas's jaw tightened. He stepped forward, placing himself between the twins and the crowd. "I know what hate means," he said, "and I've seen what it does." The sheriff's hand brushed his revolver. "Stand aside, Jonas." Jonas didn't move. The wind tore through the street, lifting the edge of his long coat. His eyes never left the sheriff's. "You hang them," he said quietly. "You'll hang what little soul this town's got left." No one spoke. The only sound was the creak of a noose swaying, the rasp of boots shifting in the dirt. Then Eli's crate cracked beneath his weight, with splitting in the heat. Wren screamed. Jonas caught her arm before she fell, pulling her close. The crowd stepped back as if the act itself burned them. He led the twins off the gallows, dust swirling around his boots. No one stopped him. No one dared. By the time he swung into his saddle again, the wind had gone still. The mob stood silent, watching as the lonely rancher rode out of town with the condemned at his back. The sun hung low, red as blood, and Ash Hollow held its breath. The gate groaned as Jonas shoved it open, the hinges screaming like a dying thing. The twins followed, silent, dust-caked, their shadows long across the cracked ground. The sky was still bleeding orange when they reached the ranch. Creed's Hollow, nothing but splintered fences and a sagging barn holding its shape out of stubbornness. Inside, Jonas said, his voice low. They stepped into the house. The air smelled of wood smoke and old earth. Faded curtains hung limp against windows filmed with dust. A single table stood in the center, 2 chairs missing legs, 1 plate already set. Jonas struck a match. The flame caught, painting the room gold for the first time in years. Eli's stomach growled loud enough to fill the silence. Jonas ladled stew from a blackened pot, slid the bowls toward them. "Eat." They did, quick and desperate. The sound of spoons scraping would fill the space. Jonas sat across from them, hands clasped, watching. His face was unreadable, but his eyes, those old storm-gray eyes, softened each time the girl lifted her head. "Where's your folks?" he asked. Wren swallowed hard. "Gone." He nodded once, nothing more. Then, slowly, he stood and went to the mantel. A single photograph sat there, its frame bent, the image almost faded away, a woman with kind eyes and a boy wearing a blue uniform. Jonas touched it like it might disappear. "Used to be more voices here," he said quietly. "Now it's just the wind." Outside, the night had settled thick and black. Coyotes yipped out near the ridge. The twins froze at the sound, but Jonas didn't move. "They won't come near," he said. "Not while I'm breathing." The wind pushed through the cracks, whispering like ghosts. The firelight flickered across Jonas's rifle propped in the corner, its metal polished clean despite the dust everywhere else. "Why'd you help us?" Eli asked, his voice rough from disuse. Jonas looked at him a long while before answering. "'Cause I seen what happens when no one does." He stood, took the old Winchester down, and set it on the table. The steel gleamed dull in the firelight. "You two stay put tonight. Door's locked. Don't answer any knocking after dark." Wren's brow furrowed. "Someone's coming?" Jonas didn't answer. He just opened the door and stepped outside, the wind grabbing at his coat. Out beyond the corral, lightning flashed along the horizon, silent and distant. He watched it, the color of blood in a dying sky. Back inside, the twins huddled near the hearth, whispering in their mother's tongue. Jonas listened through the crack in the door, that old song curling through the air like smoke. He hadn't heard it in 20 years, not since his wife sang it to their son the night before the soldiers rode out. He shut the door, slid the bolt, and checked the rifle's chamber. Out in the darkness, the coyotes had gone quiet. Even the desert was holding its breath. The dog barked first, short, sharp warnings that snapped Jonas awake. He was already sitting up before the second howl came from down the valley. The moon threw silver across the yard, catching the dust that hung thick as smoke. He moved to the window. Lanterns, 6, maybe 8 of them, moving slow but steady up the road that led to his gate. He reached for the rifle. The wood felt cool, smooth, too familiar. He loaded each round by touch alone, the metallic click echoing in the silence. Behind him, Eli stirred. "What is it?" Jonas didn't answer. He glanced once toward the hearth. Wren curled beneath a blanket, her breathing soft. He jerked his head toward the back door, down to the root cellar. "Now." Eli hesitated. "They came from town. Go." Jonas stepped outside before the boy could speak again. The air was still. Only the hiss of crickets and the distant groan of the approaching riders filled it. He walked out to the gate and waited, the rifle hanging easy in his hands. The first man's voice broke the quiet. "Jonas Creed, sheriff says you got what don't belong to you." Jonas didn't move. "Ain't that funny?" he said, voice calm as a prayer. "That's just what I was thinking." Laughter from a man behind the lead horse. Boots thudded in the dust. One lantern swung higher, catching faces, rough, hard, scared in the way men get when they convince themselves cruelty's a kind of courage. "Stand aside," the sheriff called, his voice shaking under the bravado. "You don't want trouble." "Already got it." Jonas cocked the rifle, a hollow sound swallowed by the desert wind. "You turn around. You go home. Them kids ain't yours to hang." Jonas cut him off. A hand twitched toward a gun. Jonas didn't wait. The shot cracked, loud enough to scatter the horses and send a lantern tumbling. The bullet tore through the brim of the nearest man's hat, spinning it into the dirt. Nobody moved. Smoke coiled around Jonas's silhouette, the barrel still aimed steady. "Next one," he said. "Ain't for show." The sheriff's horse sidestepped, nervous. He swallowed. "You'd shoot your own townsfolk." Jonas's eyes glinted pale under the moon. "I've done worse for less reason." For a long moment, no one breathed. Then the men began to back away, muttering, shame and fear thick in their throats. One spat in the dirt, but none raised their guns again. Jonas stood still until the last light disappeared over the ridge. Only then did he lower the rifle. His hands were trembling, not from fear, from memory. Behind him, the twins appeared in the doorway, pale in the moonlight. Wren whispered, "They'll come again." Jonas looked toward the dark line of the canyon beyond his fields. There, faint and distant, a rhythm pulsed through the night, drums carried on the wind. He whispered, "Aye, and they won't be alone." The dawn came red and slow, burning through the haze like fire through smoke. Jonas stood in the yard, coat flapping against the cold wind, rifle resting across his arm. The twins huddled near the porch, eyes on the horizon where the light bled into the mesas. Hoofbeats rolled through the still air, deep, steady, countless. The ground itself began to tremble. Then they appeared, a line of riders cresting the ridge, spears flashing, paint glinting like metal in the sun. The Comanche. Jonas didn't move. He simply waited, the light catching the silver in his hair, the years carved into his face. The riders came fast, dust boiling behind them. When they reached the fence line, they slowed. One man rode forward alone, tall, proud, his hair bound with eagle feathers. His horse's breath steamed in the morning chill. The twins stiffened. Jonas lifted a hand slightly, a signal of peace. The Comanche leader stopped 10 paces away. His voice, when it came, was low and certain. Jonas Creed. Jonas nodded. 2 moons. The wind moved between them, carrying the dry scent of sage and blood and memory. 2 moons studied him a long time, eyes unreadable. Then he spoke again. Your son saved me on the Brazos. When the soldiers came, he turned his gun away. I remember. Jonas's throat worked, but no words came. The rifle in his hand sagged, heavy as regret. 2 moons looked past him to the twins. They carry my brother's blood, he said softly. No harm must find them. Jonas nodded once. They're under my roof now. My word stands. The leader dismounted, walked forward until they stood a breath apart. He reached out, set his hand over Jonas's heart. Then our word stands too. Your house is under our protection. The riders behind him raised their weapons, not in threat, but in salute. A cry went up, rolling across the valley like thunder. The twins stepped closer to Jonas, clutching his coat. He looked down at them, then back toward the horizon where the townsmen had fled the night before. They'll come again, he murmured. 2 moons' gaze was steady. Let them. We will meet them in the open, where lies have no shadow to hide in. Jonas managed a faint smile, the first in years. Reckon I've been waiting on that kind of daylight. The chief mounted his horse, raised a hand in farewell, and the Comanche riders turned toward the rising sun. Their silhouettes vanished one by one into the gold light until only dust and silence remained. Jonas stood there long after they were gone. The rifle hung loose at his side, the morning wind brushing against the scars of his land. Behind him, Wren whispered, You knew them. He nodded. I did. And once, I was one of them. The wind caught his hat brim, and he looked toward Ash Hollow. The light climbed higher, burning clean through the last of the night. Somewhere, an old voice would tell it different each time, but always in the same. That morning, justice wore a rancher's face, and mercy rode with the rising sun.